welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a real paleontological puzzle. It's about this Cambrian arthropod, Helmetia expansa.
Ah, yes, Helmetia, a classic case. Discovered over a century ago, 1918, I think.
That's right. But for all that time, it's been this sort of ghost. We knew it existed, but didn't really know it.
Exactly. It was initially pegged as a crustacean, if you remember, but mostly based on just one single illustrated specimen.
Just one picture to go on for 100 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild it gets mentioned, but a deep understanding that was missing.
It really was. You get this tantalizing glimpse from that one drawing, but you can't build a full picture. It lacked the substance needed.
But that's changing now, which is why we're doing this deep dive. There's brand new research just out that's finally filling in the blanks.
Yeah, a study led by Sarah Lasso at Harvard. It's in the Journal of Systematic Paleontology, and it's pretty revealing.
So before we get into the new stuff, maybe set the scene. What kind of creature are we talking about here? Concilitergans, right?
Right. Concilitergans. They're an early group of arthropods. Quite rare, actually. Think of them as maybe cousins to the trilobites.
Okay, trilobites I know. Those tank-like things with the hard shells.
Exactly. Trilobites had those tough mineralized exoskeletons, which, fossilize much more easily. Concilitergans, like Helmetia, were different.
How so?
They mostly lacked that hard, calcified shell, much softer bodies, which makes finding good fossils of them incredibly difficult.
Ah, so they usually just decayed away.
Pretty much. That's why places like the Burgess Shale in Canada are so vital. They have this exceptional preservation, trapping even delicate, soft tissues.
Like a snapshot from 500 million years ago.
Precisely. It captures details you'd never normally see. Gills, limbs, maybe even gut contents sometimes. It's phenomenal.
Okay, got it. So our mission today, unpack what this new study tells us about Helmetia. Its body, how it moved.
Yeah, walking versus swimming, that's a big one.
Right, and how it grew, even how it molted its skin, which sounds amazing to find evidence of.
Oh, it is. And then placing it properly in the, the arthropod family tree.
So yeah, get ready for some surprises. This old mystery is finally giving up some answers.
And like you said, it really comes down to finally having more evidence. For so long, it was just that one illustrated specimen, the holotype.
The single fossil defining the species.
Yeah.
Trying to understand a whole animal from one example. It's like, ugh.
Like trying to understand a forest by looking at a single leaf, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. You just can't grasp the variation or how things might look under different preservation conditions. Lasso mentioned that specifically, needing more than one.
It makes total sense. One fossil might be incomplete or preserved oddly, or maybe it's a juvenile. You need a population or at least a sample to see the whole range.
Well, this new study definitely delivered on that front. They didn't just look at one or two more.
No, they examined, 36 specimens?
36 from the Burgess Shale collections housed at the Smithsonian and the Royal Ontario Museum. That's a huge leap.
Massive. And they didn't just, eyeball them. They used specific photographic techniques.
Right, you mentioned that. Wet and dry conditions.
Wow.
And a polarizing filter.
Exactly. Polarization helps cut through surface reflections and can reveal really subtle textures or structures on the fossil. Things easily missed otherwise, like faint outlines of limbs or gills.
So like using special glasses to see hidden details in the rock. Clever.
Very. And they also compared Helmetia to related species found elsewhere.
Other fossil sites.
Yeah, places like the Chengjiang biota in China, Sirius passet in Greenland, helps put Helmetia in context, see how it fits into the bigger picture of early arthropod evolution.
Okay, so let's get to the findings. One of the biggest shifts seems to be about how Helmetia moved.
The old idea, based purely on that holotype where only gills were obvious,
Was that it was maybe just a swimmer. Lacked proper walking legs.
seemed plausible at the time. If you only see gills, you think aquatic respiration, swimming.
Yeah.
Maybe it just floated or paddled around.
But looking at these 36 specimens, that changed.
Dramatically. Several of the fossils clearly showed not just the gills, but also definite walking legs.
Walking legs. Okay, so it wasn't just swimming.
Doesn't seem like it. The presence of those legs strongly suggests it could, walk along the seabed, much like trilobites did.
So more of a bottom dweller than we thought. Scuttling around?
Probably. It changes our view of its lifestyle, its ecology. Maybe it was a scavenger or even an active predator on the seafloor interacting differently with its environment.
That's a pretty fundamental change. And then there's the molting evidence. You said that was a first for this group.
Absolutely groundbreaking for concilitergans. Finding molting evidence in any fossil group is rare, but for these soft-bodied ones, extremely rare.
And they didn't just find shed skins, right? They found animals caught in the act.
That's what's so incredible. 2 specimens appear to be preserved right in the early stages of molting. Lasso highlighted how novel this was. Capturing that fleeting moment is, well, paleontological gold.
Wow. Must have been buried incredibly quickly. So what did these fossils show about how it molted?
What's really interesting is the position of the new exoskeleton relative to the old one.
Okay.
It looks like the new shell was emerging near the front edge of the head shield, which implies...
It crawled out head first.
Seems like it. An anterior exit, slipping out the front.
Is that common? How does that compare to, say, modern crabs?
Well, it's actually similar to how horseshoe crabs molt today. They also pop out the front. Most modern crabs, though, they tend to exit out the back.
Huh. Interesting. So that little detail might tell us something about its relationships or, I don't know, its internal structure.
Potentially, yes. These kinds of functional details can hold evolutionary clues.
Okay, beyond molting, what about growth? Did all these specimens tell us anything about how big Helmetia got?
They did. There was a pretty significant size range among the adult specimens they looked at.
Oh, really? So not all cookie-cutter examples?
No. The smallest adult was about 92 millimeters long, so roughly 3.5 inches.
Okay, and the biggest?
At least one specimen was over 180 millimeters. That's what, over 7 inches long? Quite a substantial animal for the Cambrian.
That's a decent range. What does that tell us?
Well, according to Lasso, it gives us a much better handle on their growth patterns, their potential maximum size. Helps us understand their life history better, how long they lived, maybe, their place in the food web.
Right. Bigger animals might have eaten different things or been prey for different predators.
Exactly. It fleshes out the ecological picture.
And all this new detail, the legs, the molting, the size, it must have helped clarify where Helmetia fits in the grand scheme of things, classification-wise.
It certainly did. These new interpretations really help solidify the distinction between 2 main groups within the broader Helmetide family.
Okay, what are those?
First, you've got the Helmetidae family that includes Helmetia expansa itself. They're characterized by having clearer segments, you can see the divisions, and they have these sort of spines along the sides.
Got it. Segmented, spiny ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the other group?
That's the Tegopeltidae. They're different, their body segments seem more fused together, and they lack those side spines, smoother outlines.
Okay, so 2 distinct body plans within that larger group. Any other classification changes?
Yes, one other significant one, a creature called Arthropods bergströmi, which was found in Greenland a few years back. Based on this new analysis, it's now formally assigned to the concilitergans group as well. So it expands our knowledge of that whole lineage's diversity and geographic range.
It really sounds like this study took Helmetia from being this, blurry photograph into something much more high definition.
That's a good way to put it. Lasso concluded that the findings give us a much fuller picture, what it looked like, how it lived, its relationships. It's a huge step forward.
Yeah, provides a solid foundation for future work on these early arthropods now.
Absolutely. It gives other researchers a much clearer reference point. And just for anyone interested in the source, again, it's the Journal of Systematic Paleontology, published April 4th, 2025. Lasso, Caron, and Ortega Hernandez. We can maybe put the DOI in the notes.
Good idea. Okay, so let's just quickly sum up the big takeaways here. The aha moments.
Well, number 1 has to be the legs, right? Finding walking legs on Helmetia changes it from just a swimmer to something that walked the seafloor.
Definitely. Then the molting. The first ever evidence in this group, and caught mid-molt, showing that headfirst exit.
Incredible find. And the size range, too. Seeing that variation gives us insights into its growth and potential maximum size.
And finally, sharpening the focus on its classification, sorting out the Helmetidae and Tegopeltidae, and placing that Greenland species.
Yeah, it really brings Helmetia and its relatives into much clearer view after, well, a century of uncertainty.
It just goes to show, doesn't it, how a fossil known for so long can still hold these major secrets, just waiting for more specimens or new ways of looking.
Absolutely. New techniques, fresh eyes, more data points that can completely revolutionize our understanding.
It really makes you think. Discovering something as basic as did it walk, or how did it shed its skin, can totally shift our view of life hundreds of millions of years ago. What other questions that we think are settled, or fossils we think we understand?
What other surprises might be lurking in museum drawers or out there in the rocks just waiting for the right approach or discovery?
Exactly. Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.